What's up, everybody, and welcome to Hex.mtg. And there's a new online commander deck builder in town that's supposed to help you become a better deck builder. Let's check it out. So normally when we're building commander decks, we're using Archidekt, EDHREC, and Moxfield. Well, this is Commander Template. This was designed by Rebel Lily on YouTube, and what makes it different is that it uses her template that she's figured out with a whole ton of math on how to actually build a commander deck that functions and works properly and smoothly, regardless of the archetype that you're using. On the front page here, you can see that they do a bunch of deck building contests. This one we got coming up for the Hobbit set was Conquest of Middle-earth. It's got the top cards that are been used in decks on this website from the latest set. So it tells you exactly how many decks have been created that have been using these cards, and it gives you like a top 8. And then it tells you what the latest decks are at the bottom. Really stoked to see a Sliver combo deck on here. Might check that out after I'm done recording this one just to see what's going on. You can see here there's only about 7,000 decks on the website. This isn't like an EDHREC where it's aggregating decks from all over the internet. This is, you create an account. When you create an account, you get access to 5 decks, and then if you want to have more slots, you subscribe to her Patreon, I believe. But to give you an example of what we are working with, I uploaded my Valgavoth Harrower of Souls deck. You can see it was on the sidebar there. This deck I primarily designed to be a burn list, not so much like wheels and card draw. And I want to make this better because I like it, but I don't love how it's running right now. This isn't a 100% blind review. I did kind of poke around before I started recording this video, but I'm probably going to find things that I missed the first time I ran through it. And this deck has been completely unedited. So this will be a learning experience for us together if something comes up. As I mentioned in the top, this whole website is based off of a template that Rebel Lily has come up with. So if we scroll all the way down, we're going to start at the bottom here. So you'll see that there are a bunch of categories as I'm scrolling through. And for example, with the lands here, you can see right here, it says 36 out of 38, meaning she recommends a total of 38 lands in a given commander deck. Then we have 12 interaction slots, 12 card draw slots, and 12 ramp slots. And the rest of it is going to be the themes of your deck. So as you can see, a lot of the cards in my deck are currently unsorted. The way that these categories seem to work is it's picking all of the cards that specifically call out things like card draw, things like target player or damage to any target or anything like that. And then we have ramp, which is adding mana to your mana pool, and it's calling that out specifically. So there are some cards up here that are going to be like Reckless Impulse that I consider card draw that the sorter when I uploaded the deck hasn't picked up on. So I think the first step in order to make this deck a little bit better is to take all of the cards that it was unsorted that firmly fit into those 3 categories, ramp, card draw, and interaction, and sort them there. For the first example, let's look at something like Reckless Impulse. Exiling the top 2 cards of your library, playing them until the end of your next turn, that in red a lot of the times is going to be like a card draw spell. So I'm going to add it to card draw. Cards can go into multiple categories when you click on a specific card. Here you can change the printing, you can add tags, you can add notes, and the role that the card plays in your deck. If you want to specifically call out your win con, you can do that here. But for now, we're going to add Reckless Impulse to card draw, as well as Where Did You Go? Light Up the Stage. Lelia would be considered a card draw as well, just because of that effect that she has whenever she attacks. Tectonic Giant in this deck is actually a pretty cool example that it could go into multiple categories. I'm going to eventually add a burn category into this, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But it's also a card draw spell because of that second ability. Deflecting SWAT is absolutely an interaction piece. So you can see at the bottom of the screen, every single change that I make here is saved in this like little queue. If I'm okay with all of the changes that I made and want to keep them, I can hit this button and you can see it was saved. So pretty much everything here looks like a burn spell. I want to go back down to the the 3 categories from before and fill those out before we make any changes up here. We have more than enough interaction according to the template. We have just too few card draw spells and then just one few ramp spell. You can actually change, and I just noticed this now, the recommended count for each category. I'm gonna stick with 12 just for the sake of the template, and then we will go from there. And you can see I've exhausted all of the current options that I have for this deck. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna click this plus button. And then what it's gonna do is it's gonna recommend cards that are typically used in these specific colors. To fill out my ramp, I'm probably gonna end up using something like a Mind Stone because it's also a card draw spell. I don't really see anything off this page that I am feeling for this specific deck. Like, we're not an Ashnod's Altar combo deck. Thran Dynamo is a bit of a trap in non-colorless decks. I like Big Score a lot, but the mana curve is really low on this deck, so it doesn't feel like it's necessary. I could do Solemn Simulacrum for the same reason that I could do Mind Stone. Let's go to the next page here. I do like Seething Song. Maybe I'll go Seething Song. I'm between either Seething Song or Mind Stone for this deck. Like, Mana Geyser can go absolutely crazy, but the way that my play group is like, people do conserve their mana quite a bit because there's a lot of Mana Geysers in the pod already. I do really like Seething Song. I'm probably gonna add Seething Song. Let's do that. Let's add Seething Song. So this is now our 12th ramp spell. You can see that there's a +1 on this Myriad Landscape. That means it is a part of multiple categories, like I had mentioned before. So it's not just counting spells, it's counting anything that can do what the category is asking for, basically. I have 2 slots for card draw, and I'm gonna add a couple here. Again, Mind Stone is an option to fill out the categories for both ramp and card draw, but this deck is very heavily focused on red. There's like not a ton of black cards to begin with at all. I do like the extra mana that we get from Seething Song, so I'm gonna go with Faithless Looting and Thrill of Possibility. I already have 3 Game Changers in this deck, and the One Ring is my least favorite card of all time, period, so I'm not adding that. Command Sphere is okay. Skull Clamp doesn't really make sense in a deck that doesn't have a ton of creatures, and the creatures that I do have, I want them on the board for as long as possible. So now we have our card draw, our ramp, and our interaction. We have the recommended minimum amounts at the very least, right? So I've talked about on this channel before and made a bunch of people kind of mad that I like 36 lands. For the sake of this video and for the sake of play testing this deck, I'm gonna move up to 38. And the nice, cool thing that this thing offers is it does have our normal plus button, so we can just kind of look at all the lands in our colors and pick from there. Or it's got this auto basics slider, so it looks at your color spread and then adds basics according to what it thinks you're gonna need, right? So you turn it on and I can see it added 1 mountain and 1 swamp, which is just about what I would have done anyway. So really, really cool function. And again, everything here is based off of math. So it's looking at everything that you're doing like a big math equation. I think this is a fantastic backbone to our deck. So now I'm up to 105 cards because we added 5 cards and hadn't cut anything. So what I'm going to do is now sort the unsorted and then make cuts from there. Because of Valgavoth being an elder demon that deals with +1/+1 counters, under unsorted in themes, you can see it has suggestions of demons, elders, and +1/+1 counters. It does not suggest burn because nothing about the card actually suggests a burn list except for the losing life during each of their own turns. So we're gonna click add theme, burn. And now we have a category where we can put our burn spells specifically. So let's add all of our burn spells into the burn category. So the one thing I am noticing about this is you don't get the text laid out. Like, You have to actually physically look at the card itself to kind of determine the text. So you don't really get any errata or anything like that, which is fine. It's just something to think about because a card like Mizzix Mastery, where like it's a lot to read, could be a bit of like a pain to figure out where it actually sits in your deck. We have 4 cards that we still need to sort, and Underworld Breach, I've already marked it, is basically our win con for this deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to see if there's any themes that it might potentially fit into. And I can tell you right now, because we're already getting into like Kindred stuff. So none of these are going to work. So I'm going to create a custom theme. I'm going to call it like damage doublers / win cons. Realistically, if I'm doubling damage in a burn list, or if I'm casting an Underworld Breach in a burn list with a full graveyard, you're pretty much just winning the game. So the only thing we don't have sorted is Corey Steel Cutter. And I like it. It's a really strong card, so I'd like to keep it in the deck. It doesn't really fit into any category, so we're just gonna leave it there for now. Hey, it's a different day, and I felt like the second half of this video didn't really give you any information at all, and it was just me rambling, so let's keep going. Where we left off, the only card that we hadn't sorted was Corey Steel Cutter, and we still needed to make 5 cuts. So let me click into my maybe board and kind of go through the cards that I cut, and then we'll go through the rest of the features of Commander Template. The first cut that was obvious to me was Corey Steel Cutter. This isn't really a combat-based deck, it's more about passive damage over time, so this didn't really fit the theme of Burn, but if I test the deck out enough and feel like it does need a sub-theme, I'll probably go back to this card. So that's why I didn't actually delete any of the cards here, it's just in the maybe board. I ended up cutting Backlash. As much as I find this card hilarious, it's not a removal spell and it feels like it should be one. It is kind of a fun combat trick sometimes, but only being able to use it once on one opponent kind of put me off a little bit on this card. Next cut I made was Hearthborn Battler, and the only reason is that the rest of the creatures in this deck do passive damage a little bit more efficiently than this one. It only cares about their second spell cast each turn, so it's only going to be doing 2 damage max per opponent per turn. And finally, Rolling Earthquake is just most of the time a more expensive Blasphemous Act. It didn't feel super necessary. If I do feel like I need a second board wipe after playtesting, I'll probably put it back in. So I am a player that has a really hard time making cuts from Commander deck. So a really nice feature that Commander Template offers is this Intelligence mode. And clicking on this, it's going to show you a whole lot of insights about a bunch of stuff that you are probably not thinking about when you're creating Commander decks, such as the ideal mana curve if you're running 38 lands. Now, I am somebody who really likes running low curves in Commander. Anything more than a 6-drop, it really has to justify its place in my decks. But according to this chart, I'm wrong. I have 3 more 1-drops than I need, 5 more 2-drops, 8 more 3-drops, and I don't have enough 4, 5, 6, or 7 plus cards. Now, if we go back to the maybe board, all of the cards that I cut are 2 or 3 drops, because that had the most wiggle room according to this chart. And that's what helped me steer myself in a direction when it came to making cuts. Not only does Intelligence mode give you a mana curve, it also gives you the percentage that you're gonna see a certain theme that you have in your opening hand or by turn 3. So I have a ton of burn cards in this deck. I have 32 total. So there's no chance that I'm not gonna see one of these cards in my opening hand. If we go back down to our main 3 core categories, every single one of these is in green, which makes sense because the whole point of the template is to give your decks more consistency. So according to the math, after 1 mulligan, there's a good chance that you're gonna have a solid hand to start with. And you'll notice that each card now has a castability rating in the corner. Basically, how easy is it for your deck to cast these spells? This seems like a really obvious thing, but a lot of players when they're building decks aren't really thinking about it. Like, just because your Commander deck is in 2 colors doesn't mean that Lock Treasure Hunter is as easy to cast as a Jeska's Will. It's not much harder because I have plenty of of mana sources that produce both red and black, but it is something to consider the higher your mana curve goes up. Scrolling down to our land base, we have a lot of useful information here too. According to the template, I have a 96% chance of casting all of my spells on curve, which I will absolutely take. And I have low percentage chances of both Mana Screw and Mana Flood. Mana Screw is considered missing 2 or more lands before turn 3, and Mana Flood is 6 or more lands by turn 4, which is kind of funny to me because I feel like I want to see 6 lands total on turn 4, so I know I'll be able to cast stuff later on, but I digress. And next to that, we get color stats. So I have plenty of mana sources in order to cast my spells. I actually could probably cut some colored mana for more utility lands, but I will probably do that after more playtesting. So the last thing we want to look at is at the very top, we have this reanalyze power button. When you click reanalyze, it's going to show 4 different categories that it's scoring your deck on. We have lethality, speed, consistency, and interaction. And if you click on any of these categories, it gives you a description on how it's scoring your deck. So for interaction, it's how much the deck disrupts your opponents, which makes a lot of sense because I'm dealing a lot of damage all of the time, ideally. The consistency score is really low, and the reason being is because it's looking for tutors and card draw. I don't have any tutors in this deck as I've used all of my game changers on other things, and it's only seeing the cards that were card draw by default. It's not looking at the cards that I put in the category myself because they don't say draw a card on them. So this probably should be a little bit higher. And if I really wanted to check, I could cut all of the temporary card draw for hard draw a card cards and see what the rating would be. Speed is how quickly your deck can accelerate through turns. It's only got a 6.6, but I have a really low mana curve, so the pace is still considered fast. And finally, lethality is how decisively the deck's win lines close out a game. It doesn't look lethal to the calculator because there's no lines in a burn deck. It's more just accumulating a ton of damage over time, but we still have a 6.5 because we have 2 different combos in here that can close out the game. And next to the analyzer, we have a way to goldfish your deck, to share it with others, change the privacy settings of it, and we also have this deck card that generates a PNG image that gives you a nice summary of your deck that you can post on social media when you're sharing it around. And that about wraps up the basics of Commander Template. This thing is really great. I'm really glad it exists, and I'm going to be using it for probably most of my deck builds going forward. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit subscribe, hit like, hit the bell. This has been Hexed Out MTG, and you have been wonderful.